Welcome everyone, today we are going to be talking about the Queen of Apex Legends herself, Wraith, and how you guys can use Wraith aggressively and fully benefit from her abilities within Apex Legends. Now if you guys do go ahead and enjoy today's video, be sure to scroll down, drop a like to support the video further, and be sure you're subscribing if you're currently not subscribed to the channel. Today we're going to discuss some key tips on how to use her tactical ability more aggressively and also her ultimate ability. Now Wraith is usually known to be a defensive legend, and you would usually use her tactical ability to escape a sticky situation or to just avoid engaging with enemies, but you can actually turn that around and use her to actually get in better positions and also push enemies, believe it or not. And that's the first thing we're going to be talking about today, is her tactical ability and using it as a way of actually getting height against enemies or getting in a better position. So in order for you guys to abuse Wraith's phase ability, you want to bear three things in mind. The first thing is you want to be engaging with the enemy prior to using this technique. If you just go straight into the phase, the enemy will have a lot of time to clock on to where you're going, and in some cases it can still work out, but the best way to do it is deal a bit of damage into the enemy first and then use the Wraith. But the second thing in between is you want to make sure you're aware of your surroundings, and whilst engaging with the enemy, see if there is anywhere which has a height advantage that's close to the enemy, which will give you the upper hand. And if we take a look at this example here, you guys can clearly see that I'm engaging with the enemy, and the second that the enemy pulls away, I see that's almost like this tower next to the enemy, and that is my chance to go get on top of the form of cover. And 9 times out of 10, when you've got the height advantage up close, you're always going to win the gunfight. The key part here is understanding your surroundings. You have 3 seconds to use the phase ability, and by the time the 3 seconds are up, you want to be on a height advantage and you want to be ready to start engaging with the enemy. So being aware of your surroundings and the distance between you and the next form of cover is really important, because you don't want to cut it short to the point where you're visible having absolutely no form of cover, because you're going to get shot quite a bit, and by the time you do make it, you could potentially go down. But if you do time it correctly, you should be on a height advantage and you should be having that key advantage going into the gunfight. And I must use this about 5 or 6 times every time I use Wraith in one single game. This is such a very advanced tip, but if you guys can get used to it, you can time it very well. And as I said earlier, you can use this even when you're not engaging with an enemy, but it's usually better to use this technique after you've engaged, because it's likely the enemy is going to heal up or they're going to be very vulnerable. So when you do have that height advantage, you'll have to deal less damage into the enemy. So if we take a look at one more example before moving on to the next tip, as you guys can see, I've been engaging with this enemy and I instantly spot an opportunity just behind the enemy to gain a crazy height advantage. So I phase, I then go onto the height advantage. The enemy does manage to clip me slightly, but because of the height advantage I've got, the enemy has absolutely no chance, and it's the easiest kill I could get. But the whole point of this is the fact that I was aware of my surroundings, I spotted that opportunity and I took that opportunity as soon as possible, and it was the easiest kill of the game. Now the next tip I want to speak about is to do with Wraith's portal, and it's quite a defensive tip, but you can maintain aggressive whilst retreating in your portal, and I don't see enough people doing it, so I quickly want to give it a mention. When you are retreating in Wraith's portal, you want to make sure that you're throwing nades straight at the portal, and you want to spread the nades out. If you're using arc stars, you want to put one to the left of the portal and one to the right, so when the enemy does try to push you, they're going to see signals coming straight down at them, so they're likely to go back into the portal and retreat themselves, giving you time to either heal up or get the revive. And if you're using something like a thermite grenade, that's even better. You can just lay the line out straight where the portal is, and the enemy usually 9 times out of 10 is going to retreat straight back into the portal, giving you time to do whatever you need to do. And I don't see enough people doing this. If you're retreating in the portal because you've dealt quite a bit of damage, enemies will be following you because they want to pick you off. So always be sure you're using this tip, and if you haven't got any nades, well, I guess you're going to just have to run like you've never run before. Although this next tip isn't helping you play aggressively with Wraith, you can use this when you're going in aggressive situations, and that is building a retreat instinct with Wraith's tactical ability. Now a retreat instinct is essentially being able to pull her ability up as soon as possible without actually thinking about it, doing it naturally in a situation when you're very vulnerable. So for example, if two enemies are contesting you at the same time and they both have eyes on you, instead of trying to shoot one of the enemies, you should naturally be pressing that tactical ability and getting out of there as soon as possible, not being tempted into shooting the enemies. Building a retreat instinct is something that comes with experience, and it's not something that will happen straight away if you're a beginner or if you're just an average player, but it's something that experienced players do very well, and Wraith's tactical ability is the best ability in the game, so you want to take advantage of it. It truly gives you a second chance, and when you feel like you're at an unfair advantage, whether the enemy has put the first bullet into you or whether you've walked into a room with multiple enemies, you don't want to think about the situation you're in, you just want to snap on her tactical ability and get out of there as soon as possible. Now the last tip I want to speak about is being the first person in your team to approach another team. Now you have the best ability in the game, you get that second chance, whereas your teammates don't. Your teammates might have good abilities such as Pathfinder's grapple, but that still exposes Pathfinder, so you want to be the first person to approach enemies and you want to try and deal as much damage into them as possible before you have to use Wraith's tactical ability, and by the time your teammates do approach the other team, you should have dealt some damage into that team so your teammates have a better chance of downing them, and that is the responsibility of using Wraith. You should be the first one to always approach enemy teams and try and deal as much damage into them as you can before you use your retreat instinct, as I said earlier, to get out of the gunfight, and this actually works out really well, and a lot of pro players and pro teams use this technique where Wraith goes in first, deals as much damage as possible, then retreats using her tactical, and that gives your teammates a better chance of downing them enemies depending how much damage you've dealt. So I'm going to wrap this video up here, guys. I hope you guys have learnt from these tips and you integrate them into your game the next time you're using Wraith. If you did enjoy today's video, be sure to scroll down, drop a like, and be sure you're subscribing if you're currently not subscribed to the channel. Thank you all for watching this Apex Legends video. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch all of you guys out in another brand new Apex Legends video.